Now you've waited for 24 hours with your 5 balls of clay sitting the way that we prepared them. If you open your container, you can see that the clay that you put in the container is now slip or slur. So anytime you need 2 pieces of clay to be joined together, you would use the slip or the slurry as a glue. 2 of your balls of clay are still nice and soft, and we're going to see what this clay can do in its plastic or wet stage. So it's been completely wrapped up, and you can see that it has maintained its moisture level. So you're gonna take one of your balls of clay and you're just gonna make a simple pinch pot. And I'm just gonna put my thumb in it. I'm gonna reach around to the bottom of it and I'm gonna pinch gently and turn. You can see that I'm doing it very gently and there aren't really big marks on the bottom. If you're pressing really hard, you'll see that your fingers are making big impressions. So your goal is to make one of your soft or plastic balls of clay into a small pinch pot. And I challenge you to make it very thin without cracking. You might notice that some very small cracks start to form on the rim, and you can just dampen your finger on a wet sponge and then smooth those cracks together. Be careful not to use too much water because that will turn your clay into slurry. So I'm making a wide and shallow, very even pinch pot. This is all about the sense of touch. So you want to feel the wall thickness throughout and make sure it's really even, really thin. So this is probably 1/4 of an inch thick here. And I'm going to take my time to smooth the rim because I want it to be functional for the next step. I set it rim side down on my plate. The next soft ball of clay is going to be rolled out into a coil. So I brought in a small chopping board and I'm going to roll this with just my fingertips. And I want it to stay nice and round. So as I roll, you can see that the cross section is still very round. If it starts to look like an oval, then you know that you're rolling with uneven pressure. It's a little bit thicker than my thumb, and I'm gonna just cut off this uneven part here with my needle tool. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so it looks like this. And I'm gonna flatten it by pinching it. So again, here's that pinch method. So if you go real slow, you can make this very even and give it a very nice, organic, smooth quality. So you can see there's no dents from my fingertips. It's just nice and even. So I'm gonna cut this again, just so it's nice and straight. And I like to take all my little scraps of clay and just throw them in my slurry. Okay, in this other end, I don't mind that it's curved, but I want it to be symmetrical on both sides. There. And it also has these sharp edges. So I'm gonna just take my finger and I'm gonna run my finger over anything that's sharp. And that's because after it's fired, anything that looks sharp before it's fired will actually be so sharp that it can cut you. So you don't want to do that. So that's nice and rounded and smooth. We're going to do what's called slipping and scoring. And this is a really important technique. Anytime you're joining two pieces of clay together, you want to scratch the surface where it's going to be joined. So I'm scratching this a whole bunch. And I like to tell all my students to score deep and ugly. So we're going to make a small scoop or spoon. So where I'm going to attach it, I'm going to score there as well. And I'm going to put a little bit of slip where I've scored it. And when you score and slip, you can't just stick them together, that won't stay. So you have to press them together. And I want to do this so that I don't distort my little spoon. So I'm pressing it together. I want to remove this seam. So I can smooth it a little bit with my finger. Then if I actually just take the brush, just by brushing over the seam, that makes it super nice and tidy. And now that seam has completely disappeared. And I've got a spoon almost ready. Just make sure that that seam is really tidy and there are no sharp edges. I'm going to make a little decoration. And you can find all kinds of tools in common objects. I'm just using this pencil to make a little chevron shape. And as a viewer of this, you could interpret this as wheat grains, or maybe even a tree if I were to leave it like this. And I found a drinking straw, and I'm gonna just punch a hole in the top so this can be hung. To sign your name on all of your artwork if you intend on firing it. Store your spoon rim side down so it doesn't get warped on your plate, and allow it to dry slowly by covering it lightly with plastic.